Hello and welcome back to the Cove. So today I'm going to start kind of a new video series where I break down and review my favorite TV shows and book series. So today I'm going to start with the Vampire Diaries just because it's what made me start this channel, but I'm going to start just with season 1 only because if I did season 1 through 8, we would be here for so long and I would definitely forget things that I thought. So, because if you want to go check it out on my blog, I just finished reviewing each episode and marking down like my favorite moments, my thoughts as I watched the episode, my favorite songs, my favorite lines, things like that. But while I was doing that, I was also creating a super hard BuzzFeed quiz, which I'll link below if you want to take it, just for season 1. So today I'm just going to focus on season 1 and then I'll loop multiple seasons in at once. But for shows that are super long like this, I'll probably break it down a little, kind of do it more in chunks rather than as a whole, but other series I'll just do as a whole. So today, The Vampire Diaries, season 1, let's go. To start off, I always want to talk about the writing just because it's something that I care so much about. And I loved getting to hear Julie talk about it at an Epic convention. And later, I know that Karina didn't write for The Vampire Diaries, but like she still had a lot of input. So I want to talk about the writing first. It is a little cringy. It is, but like you also have to remember when this came out. There are some things where it's like, oh wow, this is really obvious. But overall, I think it was really good. There was some writing stuff that they did that you didn't really see that, or I was just like, wow, that was really clever. I really like that. So, for example, Stefan talks in a much higher register using bigger words, a little bit more serious than a high schooler would normally be, kind of alluding or giving Elena those clues that he is much older. And the way that they kind of like set those clues out for Elena to pick up on was fantastic in my opinion because it wasn't like they weren't like vampire. There were some where it was just like vampire. Then there were some where like if you know that he's a vampire, you're just like how does she not pick it up on him? But so I really liked those moments. There were some where I was like, okay, you guys are in high school. And with them being like in high school also, some of the kind of like the cheesy things was like the breaking up, the getting back together, breaking up, getting back together with Elena and Stefan. I got it for the first couple times, and I got it for a little bit, but I was just like, but I know what they're high schoolers, but it did make me sense. I also really liked like some like the really like high school moments that were thrown in, and like it being football. Also, I really appreciate how just football just kind of falls off the. I mean, their coach died, but still, there's some things. There's sometimes like with shows from like this time period that they like introduce sports, but only when it's like they only have like the sports when it's necessary for the story, not reflective of high school at all, which was really, really funny to me of like how they portray sports. There was some TikTok that was going around that was just like, what's one thing that they can never get right in shows that always drives me nuts? Sports. That it's only ever on when it's convenient to the story and not like, hey, you actually have practice every day in games, every week. Nope, they have practice like once every like 3 weeks in a game like once a month. And I'm like, what's going on? Um, but anyway, that was like one of the. But yeah. Oh, and then we also got the first decade dance and the Halloween dance. That was fun. The curse of the dances has started, and I also like that they kind of set up. I'm curious if they set up some of these things intentionally that people will always die at a dance or something will always go wrong at a dance, or if that just happened in season 1 and they were like, let's make this a thing. Um, I'm so curious about that now that I'm talking about this. I want to know. Okay, so but I did really enjoy that. I loved seeing just how different Stefan and Damon are. It's so good to see them like so in it again. um, I don't know, it's so interesting seeing it as someone who's watched it so much, getting to watch the first season again of Caroline being human. And which by the way, there will be spoilers in this, so sorry if you haven't seen it. She doesn't stay human. Um, but yeah, so I really liked some of the very clever writing that happened. If you read through like my reactions, uh, I talk about the writing all the time, like I do on here. I always talk about the writing. They, I know that this was originally a book series, and you could tell that they were originally trying to stick with the books, and then I think it's like episode 8 that just like nope. Uh, with Damon having those extra vampire ability type things, and we don't really start getting like lore set up for a while, which I thought was really interesting. I'm surprised that they didn't go in to the series are already having the lore like situated and like established, so that way they didn't run into any of these issues, because there were some where like that's not how it would have happened. What are you talking about? Um, So let's go over some of like what the lore had been set up. Is they did talk about how you become a vampire, um, dying with or vampire blood in your system, and that stayed the same. Compulsion is the big one that was just like not having to look them in the eye, different things like that. And maybe that was just a Damon thing, but that was annoying. And they didn't name it as compulsion until much later. I think it was like mid season 1. I call it out because in my reviews. Um, how you feed. So like the fact that Stefan can survive off of animal blood, but he's not as strong. But human blood is better, or like you're stronger on human blood. There's a lot of like back and forth about like who is stronger, because Damon says that it's people who drink human blood, and maybe that's just like not like strongest, but if you drink human blood over animal blood, you're going to be stronger. And then Lexi says that it's vampires who are older are the strongest. And then later, when Vicky becomes a vampire, Stefan says the newest vampires are strongest. And so that's something that we see throughout this whole series of like, who is the stronger vampire? Um, you have vamp speed, and strength, which I think stays the same. And like the healing, I think that all relatively stays the same. Um, and then like heightened emotions, which doesn't like they don't go against that, but they just kind of throw that out. I don't know. It's an odd one. And then they can't be in the daylight unless you have the ring, which that stays the same. The compulsion thing I think is the biggest one that's like, what? What are you talking about? Um, it was a very good season to like set the precedent for the entire show. I think we see some things that were laid in like that were laid out in season 1 that definitely carry on. Some questions of like the doppelganger, um, that kind of gets answered. A lot of like questions about why get answered right away, which I really like that they did. I like that they showed Stefan and Damon's kind of backstory with Catherine leading up to it. I didn't like that Emily was, or like all of the like different castings that they had from episode 1 to like the future seasons was a little interesting, but that's okay. I know that that happens. Apparently, my minds don't want to stay up. Um, but I think they did relatively okay with when they had like the set switch from being in Vancouver to being in Covington. That went pretty smoothly. But yeah, I think it set a pretty good precedent of like what to expect from the show. We already had like the love triangle start between Stefan, Damon, and Elena, kind of showing the friendship, relationships, people's values. You get a good idea who they are as a character. I loved seeing all the introductions for the characters for the first time with Aunt Jenna and the adults, and just kind of how complicated it was. I really want to know some of those people's ages, but that's a whole other story. um, yeah, yeah, because like looking back and was like, how big was the age gap between Alaric and Jenna? Because he's a teacher, but he didn't start as a teacher, but he's a teacher. And Jenna is supposed to be getting her doctorate or master's, so I'm guessing like late 20s, early 30s. I don't know. I don't know. I'm very curious about it though, because they made it seem like she was a recent college grad. Anyway, um, but something that was just like a little overwhelming while watching it is just how many storylines that there were going on at once. especially for the season 1, like they really just like, because this show had been picked up for 6 seasons. So it wasn't even like they just needed to throw everything but the kitchen sink into season 1 to get picked up for season 2 and beyond. No, they just did. they shoot everything but the kitchen sink. Here are some of the storylines. So we start with vampires exist / Elena like finding out and kind of setting up the worlds and the characters. Okay, so that was the first few episodes. Then we have getting Catherine out of the tomb, and then we have Anna also wanting to get Catherine or getting her mom out of the tomb, and then we have Catherine not being in the tomb and the tomb vampires getting out. Then the tomb vampires wanting revenge. Then Elena being adopted and finding out who her birth parents are. Then Isabel showing up and wreaking havoc. Then we also just have everything with Alaric kind of coming in and being a hunter. And then we have Stefan and Damon's backstories. And then we have, it all kind of comes to head at that season finale with Tyler being something. There was a lot. There was a lot. And then Jeremy wanting to be a vampire. Oh my Lanta. I will say, like, Jeremy being upset with Elena, part of me understands, I do get it, she lied. But then he just like says some rough things to her. But I do love how they set up their brother-sister relationship, because again, like that sets up for what this is gonna be like for the whole series. And it really does. Like that duo, it's very similar to Elena just wanting to protect him coming, understanding and learning how to kind of come into himself, and then also wanting to protect her. We get Stefan being super protective, but also kind of creepy. The amount of times that he like listens in on a conversation, I'm just like, sir, creepy. Oh, that was another like thing that they have is the super hearing. But yeah, I don't know. It was a little creepy, not gonna lie. Okay, so something else that I did while I'm doing this, along with like creating the quiz, is I started collecting data. The cat wants to join. The cat's not going to join. I started collecting data because I love data and I wanted to see a few things. So the first thing I want to do is, or the first thing that I wanted to see is how many supernatural flags were there. So like kind of like a red flag, but supernatural. So how many times did something happen that definitely pointed towards being supernatural, that supernatural existed, that people just missed? And I understand, one or two, you can just kind of explain that away to yourself. Season 1, and remember, this is up to my opinion. This is very subjective. This is not objective at all. So roughly, take this with a grain of salt, roughly 62. There's combined 62 flags. So first, I started as like the town, because there's definitely things that like happened where the town should have been like, what? They had 9 total, mostly a lot at the beginning, especially with like people dying. The town. Oh, how many animal attacks can happen before it's too suspicious? Vicky screaming in the bathroom and Damon and Vicky on the rooftop. Like, how did no one see that? So like things like that. Like, how did no one see these things? I also broke down the entire timeline that we find out. But anyway, back to the supernatural flags. Elena had 23 before she finally found out in episode 6. 23 in 5 episodes. Just saying. Caroline had 11 before she was turned. Vicky had 2 before she was turned. Jeremy had 6. Matt has 8. So Jeremy has 6 before he finds out. Matt has 8 and Tyler had 3. And so far, those are the only like big ones. I did not include Bonnie in this because even though it took a little bit before Bonnie figured out that she was actually a witch, Grams had been telling her for so long that I just didn't count it. And I think somewhere deep down, Bonnie knew that she was a witch. So I did not include Bonnie in this list. Just saying. So I also tracked how many characters each actor plays, because soon we're going to get to the body swapping and doppelgangers and travelers and things like that. So right now, Nina has 2 with Elena and Catherine. Graham has 2 with Bonnie and Emily, because Emily possesses Bonnie's body for an episode. Then Paul Wesley has 3 with human Stefan, vampire Stefan, and then human blood vampire Stefan, because all 3 of those were very distinctly different. So I count people as like their human self and their vampire self, because when you're watching it, especially with Stefan and Damon, like they are very clearly different personalities. So to me, it's like playing a different character. And then so for Ian, we have human and vampire. And then back to like with like Paul, like once he does like the human blood, we have the iconic like I'm not sad, I'm hungry, and he very much changes his personality, and we see that again in season 2, which I'll talk more about when I do the season 2. But I am tracking those, and then also tracking the almost deaths. So every single time that someone almost dies, Jeremy has 3. He's almost died 3 times. Elena has 4. She's almost died 4 times now. Stefan is 2. Bonnie is 1. Damon is 3. And Caroline is 2. And then John is 1. And I just realized that Jenna technically has 1. But because I guess I could. Nope. That's season 2. That happens in season 2. She doesn't have 1 yet. My bad. So then I also counted the deaths, how many people died. So Vicky has died twice. John has died once. Alaric has died once. And then we have 14 other deaths. I just counted people who were named. Okay, so it was not like people who, like all of like the random people that like Damon killed. I did not count them. I just counted people who were named. And so we're at 14. Which I can just put here because I don't want to read all of them. And then kidnapping, Elena, Bonnie, Stefan, and Jeremy have all been kidnapped 1 time each. So those are the things I'm tracking. And then also on each of the blog posts, it's whether or not they have gone to school. And I have 1 blog post with all of this in it. So if you're just interested in the data, you can just go check that out. But it's been very interesting seeing all of this. It's also really interesting, like the last like half of it, they're like, there's not as many flags, there's more deaths. I don't know. I haven't like really, I guess, analyzed it. But seeing that like Matt only has 8, I guess for people who haven't found out about it yet, he has the most. But like Caroline not knowing where she was and losing time, like I know that she didn't have a great relationship with her mom, but like how do you just not say anything to anyone about that? That was always what got me. But yeah, I think that's largely like what I wanted to kind of cover in this video. Overall, I think it gets an 8 out of 10 for me. It'd be a little bit lower, but the nostalgia of this season definitely like ramps it up there. With my favorite song probably being Gravity. I think it's one of the most iconic ones from this season. And I mean, we had so many, like, season 1 is so good because we have so many iconic episodes, right? We have the Miss Mystic Falls, we have the I'm Not Sad, I'm Not Hungry, we have Isabel, we have Alaric, we have so many just like good scenes and episodes in this season. We have the first That's For Me to Know and You to ... We have Lexi. Oh, Lexi's episode. Oh, I love Lexi so much. I feel like it's hard to pick, but I think my favorite song overall was Gravity. And then also from episode 2, we met and talked and it was epic, but then the sun came up and reality set in. Probably like one of my absolute favorite songs from our favorite moments, favorite lines. Trying to see if there was another one. Oh, there's so many good ones. I'm curious what you guys thought about season 1. Did Elena take too long to figure out that Stefan was a vampire? Because in my opinion, she did. It was screaming at her in the face. What did you think of the writing for season 1? Or is it something that like if you haven't watched it recently, where you're just like, you know what, it's some of the like we get the iconic lines. I was feeling epic. Um, that's something for me to know, for you to dot dot dot. You know why I believe in shooting the messenger because it sends a message. All of that fun jazz. What did you think about like the whole Catherine thing and not seeing Catherine until the very end? And also whoever wrote the pilot, which I know who did because I have the writers to this, Julie, the fact that we don't see Stefan's face until he meets Elena, pure genius. I still can't get over that. It's one of my favorite things. I think about it all the time. Oh, another piece of lore is that vamps have to be invited in, but that was something that kind of gets like changed or messed up. I don't know the examples off the top of my head, but I remember being like, this doesn't make any sense why you could get in here, but you couldn't get in there. But that is one more piece of lore that I forgot. Vamps do have to be invited in. Yeah, they also make that really obvious. Oh, and so back to questions. What did you think about the writer setting up Alaric as being a vampire or like making you think that he's a vampire? And then it turns out he's just a vampire hunter and he is human. And then what are your overall thoughts about the hints that Tyler is something else and not human? Which I thought was really interesting. I'm very curious what your thoughts are. And if you are a super Vampire Diaries fan, please check out the BuzzFeed quiz that I made. Is it as hard as I think that I made it? Which I mean, it's just season one. There's definitely going to be, I'm going to make an overall one, but I want to break it down by season two. And should I make the easy version? Because I do have some questions for the easy version. But please let me know down below. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you all. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Keep getting lost in your dreams, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.